Without further ado, I present to you the man who's going to lead Israel based on Jewish values, connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in heaven, Moshe Feiglin.
And Jeff, and everybody who helped organizing the evening, and everybody who came, thank you very much. And I think I should also apologize in my name, in Shmuel's name, in Manhigut Yehudit's name, in the name of all these wonderful people that you saw that we have in Eretz Israel, in the state of Israel. I have to apologize because from now on you have a problem because of us. What is the problem? The problem is that now we cannot kvetch anymore. We cannot complain anymore. It is all in our hands. You, as Shmuel said at the beginning, what he's not going to talk about, right? Well, now it's not just a dream. What you've just seen is a dream. It becomes truth. We took an idea that 10 years ago was maybe a dead joke. To say that the Prime Minister of the State of Israel should be Yehudi, Yerei Shamayim, Shomer Torah u'Mitzvot, a man who believes in God. And upon this idea runs, the slogan was Ki yesh lo Elohim. It was not a regular campaign. It happens to be that the man who's running as a yarmulke. No, that was the point. The idea was unheard, right? In shuls, people laughed at the idea, not only outside. And hey, look at that. This is not a dream anymore. It is really happening. And every fourth member of the leading party of the national camp, probably most chances the next party leading Israel, the party that the head of that party will be the Prime Minister of Israel. Every fourth member of that party already voted for it. And it is not the NRP, it is not one of the Haredi parties, it's not some kind of a dati religious party or extreme right party. That's not what it is. It is the party that represents perfectly the entire population of Israel. The Likud is the microcosmos of the Israeli society. It reflects exactly the situation in the Israeli society. By the way, Sharon knew that fact very, very well. And that's why, after he got the result of the Mish'al, the inside vote about Gush Katif, he understood that he should never go to a national referendum. When he lost in the Likud referendum, he understood that he's going to get the exact same result in the national referendum. Because what happens in Likud represents exactly what happens in the entire nation of Israel, the entire population of the state of Israel. So when 25% in Likud already ready for that kind of leadership, understand that they need this kind of leadership to lead the state of Israel, it means that 25% of the entire Israelis want this kind of leadership already. And all we need to do is to reach another 26%. And we can. The reason why we did not win yet is because the media is there before us. And they painting us in the worst colors that they can. We understand the problem. For that we need your help. For that we need everybody to join and get the message to the Israelis to understand that there is a real faith, a real different alternative. And I go almost every night, and also during the day. And let me tell you, wherever I go and meet the Likud people, people, it takes 5 minutes and that's it. They're with us. They understand that the existing situation cannot continue. Most of Israelis today don't believe, listen to this, most of Israelis today don't believe that the state of Israel will exist in 20, 25 years from now. This is what surveys and polls shows all the time. Israelis don't believe anymore in their own state. Look at the lines of young people trying to achieve passports of Germany, passports of Poland, passports of the countries that killed their parents and their grandparents, because they feel that the boat is sinking. And it is not because the IDF is not strong enough. It is not because the economy is bad. It is because Israel got disconnected from its basic Jewish roots. And in order to connect Israel back to its root, it needs Jewish leadership. In order to survive, we need Jewish leadership. So, we all have no one to complain anymore. The vehicle is here. All we need to do is to get into it, get on board, and start going and solve the problems by ourselves. We cannot complain to Ehud Olmert. We cannot complain to anybody else because they simply cannot deal with the challenge Israel is facing today. They don't have the language they cannot understand the situation. They cannot deal with the situation. They cannot deal with the challenge out of point of view. They don't have the faith, the basic Jewish faith. Simple as that. They simply can't. And you know what? Olmert even said it. No one believed what he heard two and a half weeks ago when Ehud Olmert went to visit in the Barzilai hospital of Ashkelon. He went to visit wounded from the missile attacks on Sderot and Ashkelon and many other yeshuvim near the Gaza Strip. And Olmert spoke in Ashkelon and said, we cannot stop the missile attacks, and you'll have to get used to it. He said it publicly. It's amazing that those words came out of his mouth. Whoever, I understand that in this community, people are very much involved. I'm sure you know about it, you read about it in Arutz Sheva and other channels from Israel. Now, I think the reason why the state of Israel was created, and the reason why we have our own state, our own army, our own flag, our own president, our own parliament, the reason why we have our own sovereignty in Eretz Israel is first of all, and above all, that 63 years after the gates of Auschwitz were opened, Jews will not have to get used to get killed every once in a while just because he's a Jew, right? So what do we need the state of Israel at all? If the Prime Minister comes to us and tells us, get used to it. Well, we're not willing to get used to it. And we cannot complain, because he really cannot solve the problem. Why can't he solve the problem? Why can't he deal with the problem? Why can't he do things that look so simple? To shoot back, to stop the water, to stop the electricity. Everybody comes with ideas. Everybody says, why you don't do this, why you don't do that? We really can't. It's not his problem. The entire Jewish, Israeli leadership today cannot deal with the problem. He can't, Ehud Barak can't, he tried to stop the electricity, he failed. Simply cannot deal with the problem, and why? Let me try to analyze the problem and explain it. Let's assume that I want to play, I'm a football player, or I'm in America now, I'm a baseball player. And I'm putting on a baseball uniform, and I'm wearing a baseball helmet, and holding a baseball bat, and I'm marching into a baseball field, and 50,000 people cheering to me, waiting for the game to start. Can I decide then that I rather play football, or basketball, or chess? Sorry, you know what, I'm not going to play baseball tonight. Of course not. Because when I did all that, when I marched into the baseball field, I took upon myself the rules of baseball. Now I'm under the rules of baseball. Cannot run from it, okay? When Yitzhak Rabin shook the hands of Arafat, Yasser Arafat, Yimach Shmo V'zichro, what kind of field he marched into? What kind of field he marched into? Let's assume somebody comes to your house and sitting in your living room and tells you, your house is mine. And you shaking his hand and tells him, let's negotiate. Let's be pragmatic. You know what? You're a nice guy. You can take the 2-room upstairs. What will be the message that you'll immediately send to the entire neighborhood? The message will be, this house is not yours. Simple, because a normal person, when somebody comes and tells him, your house is mine, he pushes it out. He screams, he yells, he fights, he calls the police, he'll do everything. So everybody will know this entire house belongs only to me. There's no claim, no even ability to start to claim to my property, right? This is the message. When Yitzhak Rabin shook the hand of Arafat, Yasser Arafat basically sent a message to the entire world saying, the land is not ours. It belongs to them. But what can we do? We are here. Why? Because they were not so nice to us out there in Europe. So we had to create our own state, and the world had some mercy for us on the account of the poor Palestinians. This is basically what the world understands. And Ahmadinejad tells us all the way from Iran, it is not the Palestinians' problem, it's not the Arabs' problem, it's the German and the Austrian problem. Let them give you a state somewhere in the border between Germany and Austria. And without talking the right language, without leaning on the real sources of our claim to the state, to the land of Israel, without leaning on the Bible, without leaning on our faith, there is no answer to this claim, to this basic Arabic claim. He's right. Ahmadinejad is right. And later on, what happened 2 years ago, when the Israeli army got into those villages of good Jews who do believe that the land of Israel belongs to the Jews, and threw them out of their homes, and destroyed their homes, and left their synagogues being burned to ashes in front of the whole world, not 50,000 people cheering, but the whole world. There was no one TV channel or radio channel that didn't broadcast directly from Gush Katif. The whole world saw that we don't believe that the land is ours. Simply as that. And from now on, we left the ballgame of justice, of justifying our existence in Eretz Israel, and marched into the ballgame of pragmatism. And the world is being very nice to us. The world is being very nice. They not telling us we have to leave Tel Aviv and Ashkelon and Cholon. No, we understand it's a problem. You're there already. But you are not the good side of the story. You are the bad guy of the story. You occupy the land that not belongs to you. And even though these poor Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, shooting missiles on your civilians, and it's not nice, yet They're right. It's their land. And also we, the British people, destroyed civilian cities like Dresden during World War, and the Americans in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We also killed civilians during wars when we felt that we are the good side of it in the war. The world don't like to see it. However, the world understands those who have the justice on their side. And it's not us, it's them. Because this is the field that we marched into. And the only thing that the world leaves us to do at this situation is to act under a very, very narrow frame of self-defense. You can only shoot and hit the one who pulls the trigger of the Katyusha at the time he's doing that. Not a minute before, not a minute after. And you cannot stop the electricity, and you cannot stop the water supply, and you cannot do anything else besides this kind of self-defense. Why? Because after all, in the wide picture, you are the bad guy. And of course, under these circumstances, the little dwarf of Gaza, slowly but surely, defeating the big giant of Israel. We are not the Davids anymore. We are the bad Goliath at the story, and they are winning. And everybody understands that slowly but surely they will get also to Ashdod and to Beersheba. Sooner or later they will get to Rishon LeZion and to Tel Aviv. And Israel has no answer. Has no answer. Why? Because the problem is not a problem of physical strength. It's not a problem of we don't have enough ammunition or enough F-15 or F-16 airplanes, or America is giving us problems or anything of that kind. No, the problem is that we have to get back to the right field, the field of justice. And in order to do that, again, you need the right leadership, you need Jewish leadership. And you can do it. You can do it. It is in your hand. Baruch Hashem, Manhigut Yehudit created the tool to achieve this purpose. We are doing it anyhow. It's going to win anyhow. It is just a matter of how long it is going to take. How fast we'll be able to bring the message to the conscience of most of the Israelis. And now it's already not only a problem of us in Eretz Israel, it's also a problem of yours. We have nobody to complain anymore besides ourselves. We are all in it together. I think here in Teaneck, everybody understands that the history of the Jewish people is being written today in Jerusalem. Not in Teaneck and not in Vilna. It's being written in Jerusalem. Whatever happens in Eretz Israel immediately affects every Jew in the world. We all know that because of the evacuation of Gush Katif, anti-Semitism rised all over the world. It did not go down, even though we did what the world supposedly want us to do, because we marched deeper into this field of pragmatism, marked ourselves in worse colors of the bad guys in the story, and therefore every one of you is now part of this bad nation. And anti-Semitism rise. And we also know that when Israel is strong, like after the 67 war, we're all very proud, and anti-Semitism goes down. So the immediate connection between what happens to us in Eretz Israel and to the entire Jewish population in the world is obvious. So we're all in the same thing, in the same matter, and we need you all to help us to continue this march, to have the right kind of leadership that will save Israel. Because Israel is not going to exist without it. Without it, we have to succeed to save Israel and to save the Jewish people. I want to finish with a story that I think represents very well what I just spoke about. About 9 years ago, yes, in the year 2000, when Ehud Barak was the Prime Minister of Israel. He was a Prime Minister for about a year. And he negotiated Jerusalem just like Ehud Olmert is negotiating Jerusalem today. I got a phone call from a reporter from one of the journalists of Haaretz, Gidon Levy. You know who Gidon Levy is? Those of you who read in Haaretz magazine on the internet. He's
not worth reading.
What? Not what?
Not worth reading.
Not worth reading, I agree. Gidon Levy, I would not describe Gidon Levy as leftist. It is not true. Thank you. Gidon Levy is not a leftist. He basically crossed the lines. He's one of them. And I'm not joking. Whoever really knows what I'm talking about. Anyhow, he called me. I pick up the phone. Gidon Levy's on the line. And asked me to come for a debate in Jerusalem, in the Jerusalem Theater. Yerushalayim is on the negotiation table, and he wants me to come. The issue is Jerusalem. Who I'm debating against, I ask him. He tells me it is against Yuli Tamir. She is one of the founders of Shalom Achshav, and she was then the Minister of Health under Ehud Barak government. And Faisal Husseini, who unfortunately, Baruch Hashem, died a few weeks later. I hope there's some kind of a connection. However, Faisal Husseini was then the minister of the Palestinian Authority, who's in charge of the issue of Jerusalem, of Kol Inyanei Yerushalayim. Faisal Husseini, very famous Arab leader, so-called Palestinian leader in the PLO. And I said, okay. And when I came to the Jerusalem Theater, I saw that Gidon Levy invited not people like you. All the crowd were members of B'Tselem, very leftist organization in Israel. Gidon Levy's guy. So it was obviously not my piece of cake over there. There was a stage over there, and 3 steps, and 3 chairs, and a little coffee table. And Gidon Levy stand where I'm standing today, and he called Yuli Tamir to come up the stage. The minister Yuli Tamir, please come, and everybody clap hands, cheers to Yuli Tamir, and she sits down. Then he called Faisal Husseini, the famous Faisal Husseini, who was in charge of Jerusalem from the Palestinian Authority, and everybody clap hands, and Faisal Husseini gets up the stage and sits down. And then he called Moshe Feiglin. And I thought that I'll hear boo, you know. And something worse happened. It was more quiet than a cemetery in the middle of the night. So I felt that the eyes making holes in my back when I came to the stage. And when I started to get up those 3 steps, Faisal Husseini surprised me and got up from his chair and gave me like this, like his hand to shake while I was going up. And I ignored his hand. I didn't want to shake his hand. Oh, so now it was even much worse, you know. When I was sitting down, Gidon Levy said, I want to start the evening, but first of all, Mr. Feiglin, I want to ask you a question. How come such an important person, mechubad, you know, very honored person, he wants to shake your hand? But how come you're not shaking his hand? So I told him, look, Mr. Levy, Faisal Husseini wants to take away my holy city, Jerusalem, from me. How can I shake his hand? He's my enemy. Will you shake the hand of somebody that want to take your house? So Gidon Levy saw that he's getting nowhere with me, and he left it as it is and started the debate. Yuli Tamir spoke whatever she spoke. I don't remember what she spoke, but Faisal Husseini said that he comes from a very famous Arabic family in Jerusalem, which is true. And he remembered that before the Israelis occupied Jerusalem, before then, there was peace between the Jews and the Arabs, and everything was great until the Israeli occupation. Once you finish the occupation, which means go away, we'll have peace again. It is a tremendous lie. Those who know the history know that it's a tremendous lie. However, that's what he said. And then my turn to speak came. And I looked at Faisal Husseini. Yuri Tamir sat between us, so I looked at him above her head. And I told him, you know, Mr. Husseini, we have something in common that no one at the audience have. Only you and I. And he was very surprised. He looked at me. People felt, wow, maybe the ice was broken. Maybe a message of peace will come out of this discussion. Feiglin found something in common with Faisal Hussein. Yes, I have something in common with you that no one else in the crowd has. What is it? We both believe in God. Forget about all the other guys over here. They're all Chilonim. Forget about it. We both believe. Do you believe in God, Mr. Husseini? And of course, as an Arab leader, he had to answer yes, because if he will answer no, he won't make his way back home. He won't get back home. He didn't make it anyhow, and I believe there was a connection. However, a few weeks later, he was, I believe, murdered by Arafat himself. However, they say it was a heart attack, whatever. Anyhow, we both believe in God. So I told him, look, I have something here. I have here a book. This is my holiest book. I took a book from my case. I took out the Teaneck. This is my holiest book. And I put it at this coffee table. And I told him, you know, Faisal, Yerushalayim is mentioned in my holiest book, in the Bible, over 800 times. You can count if you want. So he went like this, very nice. Okay, so what? 1 minute, I have here another book. I took out the Cohen. I told him, I believe this is your holiest book, right? He said, yes, of course. I put it next to the Bible. And I told Husseini, find me Jerusalem mentioned once, only once, in your holiest book, and then tell me who Yerushalayim belongs to those who believe in this book, or to those who believe in that book. And you know what happened? The crowd, the people of Bethsaida, and this ultra-leftist crowd Gideon Levy brought to the Jerusalem theater, started to clap hands. I was surprised. I was very much surprised. I did not believe that without even meaning to it, I'll be able to get to these guys somewhere where their Jewish point is, you know? But that's what happened. That's my experience, my personal experience. We need in Israel a leadership that speaks in that language in order to keep the state of Israel. In order to have the state of Israel for our generation, for the coming generation, for generations to come, we need that kind of leadership. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. We're losing it already. We have to have this kind of leadership. It is in our hand. The only question is how long and how painful, God forbid, the process will be. And that answer, and for that answer, each one of us, for that question, each one of us have to give an answer. Thank you very much.
We will take questions with just two announcements first. Everybody, as you entered, received a card. We're trying to build up here a chapter, a group of people that can really get this going here in the Teaneck area. Just kindly, on your way out, fill it out and give it to the handsome gentlemen that are standing at the door. And that's number one. Also, there are books available for sale that Moshe wrote, just translated into English, and he will gladly sign them. You can probably triple your money on eBay as early as tomorrow. And of course, the most important thing, you know, here in America there's a primaries going on right now, as you're all well aware. before the primaries started, the way they would judge the strength of a candidate was by the amount of money the person raised. Now already there's delegates and super delegates and all that stuff. But before the first primaries was held, they would report how much Hillary raised and how much Obama raised and how much John Edwards raised, and that was how strong they were based on that. And therefore it's very, very important. Now Israel, you never know when the next election is going to take place. We know who the head of the Likud is, that's Netanyahu. But who's going to be number 2 on the list, number 3, number 7, number 24, and so on. Very shortly, we don't know exactly when, it could be 3 months, it could be 9 months. Likud will hold another primaries, not for the head, but for the rest of the list. And Moshe is going to be running for a very high spot in the top 10, in the top 15, to guarantee that he will represent you in the next Knesset. And we have to make sure that that happens. So we urge you to take part in this exciting campaign, and to simply, for those that obviously agree with this type of approach, to join together with us and to write a check out to Moshe Feiglin Bechirot, spelled out in English any way you want, and that goes into a special campaign fund. It's not tax deductible, not in any way. It cannot come from a foundation, nothing. And I apologize, but the maximum allowed by Israeli law is only $2,800. So if you wanted to give $50,000, you can give the shul, and the rest of $2,800 we'll take. But seriously, that's all that we can accept, and that is something that will allow us to mount a serious campaign in Israel. That's what needs to be done. This message has to reach the Likudnikim from Eilat to Metula. Very, very important. We will gladly accept your questions. Just make sure that they're questions and not half an hour speech. We'll do the best we can to answer them. And your first question, yes?
I wanted to say that we should say it like it is. Israel has a God of love and not a God of blood. And we should make one thing important. Shalom. קודם כל בין יהודים וכבוד עצמי לקדש השם לפני כל העולם.
Amen. Amen. Okay.
And we have to say it like it is. No one will keep, don't fear, no one will keep that land, not the Greek, not the Roman, no one unless they keep Torah. And when we don't keep Torah, we lose the land. So it is time we should understand how worthy, how worthy.
Amen. Amen. She's a new campaign manager. Amen. Yes, a question, the gentleman just if you could stand up and ask the question so we can hear it.
As Prime Minister, what would you do for foreign relations? The entire European Union, most of the entire world except for Micronesia, the United States, are on Israel's side. And if you say that you're going to stop the rockets from Gaza, which the world won't accept, if you say that the entire world's going to be against the state of Israel, how are you going to handle the PR to the rest of the world?
Well, Baruch Hashem, there were some leaders in the past, Israeli leaders in the past that did not agree with your basic assumption. For example, Ben-Gurion, who decided to declare the Israeli state against the will of the United States, against the will of Great Britain, who I'm forbidden to go there anymore, by the way. Very proud of it. And there were leaders like Levi Eshkol that decided to went to a war and occupy the territories in 1967 against the will of the United States, against the will of Europe. Baruch Hashem, they did not listen to the world. And because they occupied the entire territories of Yehuda and Shomron, killed 20,000 Egyptian soldiers, because we were the bad guys, suddenly we started to get money from the United States. And airplanes and munitions and so on. So you see, it doesn't work exactly like that. Later on, Menachem Begin, against the will of the United States, decided to bomb the nuclear reactor in Iraq. They were against it. The whole world were against it. Later on, they salute to it. You see that when Israel is doing what it's supposed to do, the world accepts it and salute to it. We just need to have, as Batya just said, our own pride in who we are, and we should, and the Israeli leadership should worry about our interests first, and not anything else.
I want to thank Moshe for coming. We'll take a few more questions in a moment. It's a tremendous honor for us to have him here in Shul. I have no doubt that there's been a tremendous sense of disillusionment over the years in Israel and here too with the quality of the leadership that's existed in Israel. So let me just take this opportunity to ask this question. Some of our disappointment extends to the rabbinic leadership as well in Israel and in America. So just because one has a kippah on his head does not necessarily qualify one for leadership. The people with kippot on their heads, who I would not trust with kashrut even, much less with an entire community. So maybe you could tell us some of your personal background in terms of Torah education, secular education, qualifications through the years of Zohar Tzenu that has led you to this day, that we should turn to you and say, this represents the manhigut you did for the future.
Well, that's a hard question, because to speak about yourself is not easy thing. Maybe Shmuel will speak about, and rather others will speak about you, but I'll tell you in general, that I definitely agree that the fact that you wearing a yarmulke does not mean almost anything. You can be a very bad person. I know some not so great guys that wearing yarmulkes. I know some tzaddikim that are not. This is not the case. This is not the issue. This is not what we are talking about. You know what Shmuel said, as a good Jew, I'll answer you with a question. Okay, if you're standing in Tel Aviv and you want to go to Eilat, there is a very good vehicle, Mercedes, ready and prepared. The door is open, the engine is going. The driver knows the way. He will take you to Eilat. But you want to go to Metula, not to Eilat. The vehicle that goes to Metula is a very old one. You don't know it's going to make the whole way. The driver seems to be not knowing exactly how to get there, but he at least wants to get to Metula. Who are you going to go with? Who are you going to go with? You see, your question, with all due respect, is totally irrelevant. I'm sorry. Why it's irrelevant? Because I have no competition. You're stuck with me. I'm the driver. I don't know if I don't consider myself a great tzaddik. And if I learn another daf of Gemara, or one more or one less, I simply understand that the state of Israel has to be led by leadership that fears God. I understand that. Am I capable for this? No. But personally, I don't feel like I am capable. Who can say on himself that he's capable to lead the children of God? Of course I'm not capable. But at least I want to get to Metula. At least I know where I should go. Now, take a guy like Ehud Barak, for example. Wow, he's great experience. He was the defense minister already, and a prime minister already. But that simple thing, that because that I'm talking about, leadership that fears God, it is not the direction where he goes. This is not what he's talking about. And therefore, he was willing to give Jerusalem in the past. He will give it again. And Ehud Olmert. And I'm sorry to say, also the right-wing leaders, all great people that the national camp produced, okay, gave us, Menachem Begin, Yitzhak Shamir, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Ariel Sharon, who are all great people, great talent, strong people. The lack of this point brought them all to become, as you saw, as I said in the movie, a subcontractor of the left at the end. At the end, they got to Eilat, not to Metula. And we suffering from the, I would say, our problem is that there is no competition. No one is doing it besides me. There's no other driver that goes to Metula that say he wants to lead the nation according to Jewish values. So you're stuck with me. You can do two things: either vote for me, or or run yourself.
Now, can you share with us the major points of your platform? With God's help, you'll become Prime Minister. What will be the first few things you would do?
Thank you very much. If you can read Hebrew, by the way, first of all of you that can read English should get into our website, jewishisrael.org. Everything is there. However, if you can read Hebrew, it's very, it's kedai, it's worthwhile to get into my election website. It was, if you saw the buses and everything we posted, we put MF1, Moshe Feiglin, MF1.co.il. Get into it, and you will immediately see the 5 points, the 5 nekudot that I was speaking about, and saying it as an answer to your question. The first one is Chinuch Yehudi, Jewish education. First thing, and above all, Jewish education. This is the main problem of Israel today. It's not the Arabs, it's not the economy, it's not the pressure from the United States, it's not even the rockets from Gaza. It's the lack of Jewish education. Most of Israeli kids that finishes 12 years of Israeli education cannot finish the sentence Shema Yisrael. Believe it or not. The sentence that every 2-year-old in Europe could finish after, and remember it after 3-4 years in being hidden by Christians. After 60 years of Israeli government under the sovereignty, under the chinuch, under the kind of education we're getting from Yuli Tamil. She is the education minister today. Kids in Israel cannot don't know this sentence, Shema Yisrael. So first of all, education. and we are very specific. If you click on Jewish on this first line, it will open and you'll see exactly what we mean. We mean an hour of Jewish education in every school in Eretz Israel every day. We're not going to force anybody to pray, but everybody will know what Siddur is and what's written in this funny book. Everybody will know the land, the history. Everybody, 18-year-old young men that get into most of the new soldiers that comes to the IDF never visited Jerusalem once in their life. Can you believe that? In Israel, I'm sure most of you were in Jerusalem already, right? Most of Israelis, young Israelis, did not. Then the war comes, and they don't know what they're fighting for. And when they finish the army, they wish to leave. Because why to live in Israel? It's the most stupid place to live. Most dangerous place to live. So first of all, it is education. Then the second point is family value. Family values. In Israel today, Israel created a system that destroyed the family cell. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's so crazy that people are getting divorced just because this way they make much more money. They pay much less taxes. So the family value. The third thing is the justice system, creating a justice system that's based on Jewish values and not on the extreme left values that Aharon Barak forced on the big majority of Israelis. You should know that most of Israelis, over 80% of the Israelis, see themselves first of all as Jews and only then as Israelis. However, the justice system and the media and basically the real leadership, those who decide where the country is going to go, decide on the national agenda, they belong to the 20% who see themselves already as, who already create a new identity instead of the Jewish identity, and it's being forced on them more than all by the justice system. So that should be changed. The fourth point is bitachon, of course, the right kind of security. And the fifth point is the Israeli Arabs. We have to deal with the Israeli Arabs. We have a very big problem with that. So these are the 5 points that I ran with and needs to be dealt immediately when we're away. Yes, please.
Speaking about Israeli Arabs, in Gaza, based on the past, tell Arabs, move because in 2 days we're going to bomb. They don't run away. Their tactic is, as Arafat did in Lebanon, is to move into the crosshairs and tell the world, see if you're going to shoot me. So how are you going to deal with 1.5 million Arabs who will not run, but they will move into the crosshairs? Same thing with the Harabayit and Gulen Shammai.
Okay, first of all, I'll answer your questions, but I have to say first of all that the Arab problem is not the main problem. It's not the problem. Okay, the problem is between the Jews and themselves. As I explained during my speech, the outside pressure comes on us because we lost our basic justification, our basic claim to the land. That was what brought the pressure, the Arabic pressure, and the entire world pressure on us. It's in a different field. It's not in the field of demography or strength, physical strength. It's in the field of justice, in a field of values, I would say. Now, what needs to be done with the Arabs? You mentioned the Arabs of Gaza. We all saw just a month and a half ago how the Hamas regime destroyed the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt, and half of the population of the Gaza Strip evacuated themselves in 1 week to Egypt. If I would have been there, I would close the door. I'm not going to come back. So it is not so true that they're not moving so easily. They move when they feel, very quickly, when they feel it is worthwhile for them. Now let's know the numbers first, okay? The numbers are 1.1 million Arabs in Gaza and 1.4 million Arabs in Yehuda v'Shamron. These are the real numbers. 2.5 million Arabs altogether in Yehuda v'Shamron. That's first of all. Yoram Ettinger sent all of us tons of emails explaining that days and night, and these are the true numbers. That's first. Now, what are we going to do with them? Forget about the Gaza Strip right now. Unfortunately, we are not there. It's a different story. Let's focus on Yehuda v'Shamron. According to the Anajach University, they did a survey, and they say that already 60% of the residents of Yehuda v'Shamron wishes to leave Eretz Israel. I believe that the numbers are much higher than that, because when the so-called Palestinians themselves give you the numbers, I guess they want to show numbers as small as can be. Yet they admit that most of the Arabic population in Yehuda v'Shamron wishes to leave. And maybe that is the good thing that came out of this handshake of Rabin and Arafat, because after 15 years of living under their own regime, making like $500-600 a year, being used as a time bomb against the Israelis, being used by their own brothers and sisters, and being close to the Israelis and see how they can live, and they have internet and know they can live much better anywhere else in the world. They want to leave. Where they want to go? They want to be workers in Kuwait and Saudi. They want to go to Canada. They want to go to those countries that will accept them. And there are a lot of Western countries that need this kind of skilled people. They are skilled, they know how to work, they know how to do many things because they live near the Israelis, near modern society for the last 40 years and learned. Why they want them? In Canada, for example, if you notice, the Canadians changed the rule of immigrations now, so skilled people will be easier for them to come, because in many Western countries they have less than 2 kids per family, and they simply need immigration, so the country will be able to function. So there will be drivers, bus drivers, hard workers to keep the country going. So on one hand, they want to go. On the other hand, there are a lot of countries that need this kind of people. And in the middle, there is the Israelis that can help them find their future anywhere else in the world and not being used as a bomb against the Israelis. And if we need to pay a lot of money to help them do that, we should do it. And we have that money. We have a lot of money. Why? Because 10% of our national income goes every year on the false concept of Oslo. $150 billion we paid in the last 10 years since this handshake of Rabin and Arafat. On what? We spend that money on walls, separation walls. We spend that money on Hitnatkut, on destroying Jewish villages. We spend that money on, for example, having a guard in front of every coffee shop or every shopping mall in Israel. We have over 60,000 guards on a full payroll through the whole year. Why? Because of that process. We didn't have these guards before, right? Because this process did not bring peace. It brought more and more bloodshed. So we need now the guards. And in the coming years, we'll have to spend more money because the separation fence does not help, because now they're shooting missiles. So we'll have to build fences that are high enough to stop the missiles, and it costs more. Or, if it won't work, we're going to dig ourselves under the ground. Look how Sderot looks today. Like one big atomic shelter. It's crazy. It's a total craziness. We can take this money, buy their property, help them find their future somewhere else, and in a process of 5, 10, 15 years, solving the problem, or at least most of the problem. But you should know that until we'll have Jewish leadership leading the state of Israel, no one is going to do this very simple, logical, and humanitarian solution that I'm just offering. Why? Why Israel is not going to do it? Why the existing leadership is not going to do the simple solution I just showed you? Because what's going to be the end result after we'll solve the problem of the so-called Palestinians? What's going to be the end result? We'll be left with Eretz Israel. We'll be left with Eretz Israel, with the biblical sites. We'll be left with Kever Yosef in Shechem. We'll be left with Me'arat HaMachpelah in Hebron, where our fathers and mothers are buried. We're going to be left with Kever Rachel. We're going to be left with Har HaBayit. What are we going to do with it? Build Beit HaMikdash, God forbid? What are we going to do with this land that force our Jewish identity on us? We want to be only Singapore of the Middle East, as Shimon Peres said. We want to run away from our Jewish identity. We want to have we want to be Am Kechol Ha'amim around Tel Aviv, in both sides of the Yarkon, between Gedera and Chedera. Not more than that. That was our dream. To join the family nation, be a nation like all the nations. Now suddenly these territories that carry the most of our heritage is being forced on us on 67, and these crazy lunatic mitnachalim settlers going to live there and connecting us back to connecting Judaism back to history here on Eretz Israel. What's going to be that? That was not our dream. You see, if the Oslo process, if the idea of giving them land would have been a process of peace, if it was a peace process, then after one or two bomb attacks on buses, after one or two buses that were blown, those, Yossi Feiglin and others, those who brought this concept would have said, sorry, we wanted peace, we did a terrible mistake, sorry, let's find a different solution. But no, they continue again and again, and it seems like this bloodshed don't stop. They cannot get off of this island. And you have to come to the conclusion that the reason for this process is not peace. Arafat was not supposed to get the land and give us peace. He was supposed to get the land for getting the land, for taking it away from us. He was a subcontractor simply to take away the land. And Yossi Sarit said it openly, many years ago. He said, I feel uncomfortable to say what he said. He said, we got to get rid of these goddamn territories. That's what he said. It's not about peace. It's about getting rid of these damned territories, forcing our Jewish identity on us on the national level. This is what it is about. And that's why we have war and not peace. Once we'll connect ourselves back into our Jewish identity and create this proud Jewish state, we'll also have peace. Not a minute peace.
To the back.
Do you have a plan how to get the captives back? What is your plan to return Ehud Goldberg, Basir, and Regev, Eldad Regev, and Gilad Shalit back home, and also with regard to Jonathan Pollard? What is Manhigut Yudi's plan? And can you spell it out for us?
Yes, I can. I thank you for the question. It's a very important question. You should know that this coming Tuesday we are going to visit Jonathan Pollard. We're trying to do it. We are trying to do it at least once a year. It's going to be the fourth time. Bezrat Hashem, last time. About Jonathan Regev and his friends that are being basically Gilad Shalit. What are we going to do with it? Look, we have to understand why Gilad Shalit is in prison right now. Why he was kidnapped. You know why? Because Israel decided to give away, to let other terrorists go free when they got the prisoners before. That led to the situation where from now on every Jewish soldier worth everything for them. It's worthwhile for them to kidnap our soldiers. Every time they taking one of our soldiers, our Jewish heart works hard. We're giving away all the, we're giving them whatever they want. We let them free. And we're creating the situation that it will be worthwhile for them to take more and more of our soldiers. So the answer to your question is, I really don't have a miracle solution to Gilad Shalit. I don't. But as a leader of Israel, I don't have to take care only of him, but of many other soldiers that will find themselves in the same solution if I will do the same mistake. It's a very hard decision, but this is what needs to be done. They should be punished. Their leadership should die. Everybody who's involved with this should not live another minute, and Israel can do that. The pressure should be unbelievable. If you come alive out of it or not, I don't know. But the answer cannot be giving up as it is today, again and again.
Just a reminder, the cards that you have, those who wish to participate and to join or to give money, please give the cards and the checks to David Shirel, who came all the way from Hebron, Yar Kodesh, for that purpose. He's standing outside Looks like he's from Hebron with a beard. There you go. Oh, we have time for 2 questions. Don't forget to see him on the way out. The many things I agree with what the Moshe said tonight. One thing in particular, it is a Shabbat Chag. Time is running out. It's hard to speak in a pessimistic fashion, but time is running out. The country is shrinking, and the morale is sinking, and it's an opportunity to transform the situation in one fell swoop. Yes?
I have a question about the 26% that you're trying to get to. Shmuel said you've got 25, you've got 26 to go. We here in America hear that there is a very substantial number of Jews in Israel who are secular. Maybe a majority, certainly a substantial plurality of Jews who are secular. And it seems to me that among the 26% that you need to get to, a lot of them are probably secular or secular-oriented Jews. My question is this: what is it that you either have now or can imagine yourself fashioning as part of your message to try to enlist the support of those Jews who feel patriotic, who feel passionate about Israel, who feel committed to Jewish history, but are not religious, and could form a part of your base if you could get to them?
Thank you very much for your question, because I'm sorry, Rabbi, I disagree again. Our message is a very happy message. We're coming with a message of hope. We're not coming to say, look how terrible the situation is, and we are being shot at, and we're coming to ask you for bulletproof vests or ambulances. No, this is not where we are coming from. Or people don't have enough food or anything else. The message here, we can lead the state of Israel, and we created a tool to do it, and all we need is to keep on focusing on that target, and we are on our way, and we already made half of the way, and we're going to make the rest of the way, and there's no 2 ways about it. The only question is how fast it will take. I don't think there's a better message than that. We're not coming to say the terrible, I'm not kvetching anymore about the situation, we're coming with a solution. So I think it is a great message. We both agree about it. It's a great message. It's a message of hope. And forget about the terrible situation of Israel. Here we're coming with a solution that's focused on it. Now, to answer your question, which is a very important question, the Israeli population is divided like this. And just a month ago, the Ynet website, which is the biggest website in Israel, Yediot Achronot actually, showed a survey that only 20% of the Israelis define themselves, said about themselves that they are Chiloniyim. 20%, even less, 19%. That's incredible. We used to think that everybody who's without a yarmulke see himself as a Chiloni. It is not true. Simply not true. Only 20%. By the way, it's interesting. It's also 20% who do not see themselves, first of all, Jews. Right? It's the same thing. Only 20% see themselves as secular. What happens with the rest? 50% say that they are Masortiim, traditional, and the rest are Datiim and Charedim. So the seculars are minority. This is first of all. And I don't think I'm going to get those votes so fast, even though there are people who voted Shinui and today are members of Manhigut Yehudit. In Manhigut Yehudit, you should know, there are Charedim on one side, Charedim with all the costume, black hats and everything, and Kibbutznikim Shel HaShomer HaTzair on the other side. All working together in Manhigut Yehudit. You saw some of their faces today at the movie. Why? Because when you are talking about national leadership, when I say I want to be the Prime Minister of Israel, basically what I say is, in my in my place there's room for everybody. The message is message for everybody. I'm not going to lead, I'm not in the NRP, or Yichud Leumi, or on the Haredi party, or I'm in Likud. I want to lead the people of Israel, all of them. I don't want to lead my sector. I don't want to look at my face. I want to look at and everybody has room, and they come. Now, it's going to be hard with a 20%. That is true. Already today, from those who voted for me last time in Likud and gave me the 25%, only half of them were the team. Half of them came from people we registered to Likud. A bit more. About 52% were our people, and the rest, regular Likud guys. You saw the guy who said, that was interviewed. He said, I want to give Feiglin a chance, something like that, right? He was not religious. He was not religious. Once you're talking about leadership, and once you're breaking this wall of fear, they're trying very hard to build a wall of fear, like if Feiglin will be the prime minister, we'll all have to wear yarmulkes or something like that. That's stupidity, of course. Once you break the wall of fear, once you get to them with a message, it is very easy. And this is what we need the help for. Because the most important thing is to get the message there. Just, for example, send a letter to 120,000 members of Likud, you can make the figures how much it costs. So we're talking about a lot of money over here. We're talking about a political campaign. You know what a political campaign is? But this is not a campaign. This is a revolution. A revolution that we all very much need.
Last question, Avi Hoxton.
Assuming you're Prime Minister of Israel, and there's no time to get rid of the revisionist history and all of this.
Get rid of what?
There's no time to change the revisionist history. 1 month later, Hezbollah attacks from Lebanon, Hamas attacks. Will you bomb the civilian population? What exactly is it that you will do?
Before Moshe answers the question, this is the last question. We'll take questions privately after this, but I know the hour is late. People have to go home. Again, there's a book outside, and I ask you and urge you that everybody here, plain and simple, if you can give $100. If everybody here gives $100, that'll be an amazing accomplishment. You'll be part of this movement, and you'll know that you're helping bringing new Jewish leadership. Ezrat Hashem, this is exactly what we need to do. Again, the books are outside. Moshe will sign them, and we'll take this answer this question.
I will simply do what's good for the Jews. And if needs to bomb civilians, yes, that's what we'll do. I definitely look today, Israeli officers in Golani and in Tzanchanim are proud of the fact that instead of that their soldiers got killed and not civilians. This is the ethic code of the IDF today. We're going to go back to a Jewish code. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi Brzezinski. Thank you, Teaneck. A lot of people came from outside Teaneck. Yeshurun to all of you. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim.